Hi everyone, welcome back. This video we're talking about dualism. So we're still talking about the mind-body problem, but now we're talking about dualism. So Descartes, as mentioned in the original mind-body problem video, Descartes' a dualist. In the Meditations, he presents an argument for dualism. He endorses dualism, which means he thinks that minds are separate from the body. And he thinks that what you are is a mind. You are a thinking thing. That's cogito ergo sum is a Latin phrase that Descartes made famous. I think, therefore I am. I think, and that alone proves to me that I exist. Because he tries to be as skeptical as possible, which we'll talk about later when we get to skepticism. He tries to be as skeptical as possible. He tries to say, what are all of the things I can possibly doubt? And what are the things that I can't possibly doubt? And one of the things he can't possibly doubt is that he exists. Because he's thinking. He's doing the doubting. And so as long as he is doubting, that means he's thinking. And as long as he's thinking, he exists. There has to be something doing that thinking, and that's him. So he thinks you, similarly, are a thinking thing. You are your mind. You don't have a mind, you are a mind. You have a body, but you are not your body. Your body is not you. You could exist without your body. And so here's Descartes' argument, which is very long and complicated, and we are going to go through a simple English version instead of complicated old-timey English version. So feel free to read this if you want, but what we're going to focus on is a simpler version, laid out in premise conclusion form. So Descartes, because remember, Descartes trying to think, what are the things I can possibly doubt, and what are the things I can't possibly doubt? So he thinks, I can't possibly doubt that I have a mind, right? I can't possibly doubt that I have a mind, because if I am doubting, then I am thinking. And so that thinking thing, the mind, has to be there. But I can doubt that I have a body. He says, I can possibly doubt that I have a body because all my senses lie to me sometimes. And so I might think that they have been lying to me all the time. Probably don't think that, but could possibly think that. It's possible to think that your body, which you only know about from seeing and touching and feeling it, it's possible to doubt that. If you were born without sight or hearing or touch or taste or smell, you would not know about your body. You would have no idea that your body existed. But you would still be thinking. And so you would still know that you had a mind, because there would be a thinking thing there. So Descartes thinks, I can't doubt that I have a mind, I can doubt that I have a body, and I can imagine my mind existing without my body. Right? It's possible to imagine thinking without having your body. Your mind existing without your body seems possible. You can imagine it. You can imagine just sort of being some immaterial floating thing. Like imagine yourself as a sentient beam of light or something. No physical body. You can imagine that probably. And anything you can imagine is possible, according to Descartes. So therefore, it's possible, since we can imagine it, for our minds to exist without our bodies. But that means the mind and the body must be distinct. Your mind and your body must be, at least in theory, separable. But if your mind and your body are distinct, then your mind is not part of your physical body. Your mind is something separate. And so that means your mind is not physical. So Descartes thinks that you can imagine your mind without your body, and that shows that your mind is not physical. Because your mind and your body must be, at least in theory, separable. And that to some extent, that makes a lot of sense, because if we can imagine our mind without our body, if it is possible for our minds to exist without our bodies, well, then our minds can't be our bodies. Our mind and body must be separate. Our mind couldn't possibly exist without our mind. Look at it that way. Your body can't exist without your body. Your chair can't exist unless your chair exists. New York doesn't exist unless New York exists. If two things are identical, if they are the same thing, just two different names for the same thing, well, then one can't exist without the other, because they're just the same thing, and either that thing exists or that thing doesn't exist. If your mind was your body, if your mind was part of your physical body, then if your mind existed, your body would exist. If your body existed, then your mind would exist, because they'd just be the same thing. They would be one and the same. And either that thing, which is both your mind and body, exists, or that thing doesn't exist. Either way, you can't have your mind exist without your body, or your body exist without your mind, if they're the same thing. So if it's possible for your mind to exist without your body, to just have your mind and not your body, well, then clearly they're not the same thing, because in this case, one of them exists and the other doesn't. That's enough for them to be different. That's Descartes' argument. Which maybe you think that sounds good, maybe you think it's not. Over the centuries, there's been a lot of pushback on the idea that being able to imagine something automatically means it's possible. So I want to talk about a different argument that's fairly related, but it's a little bit different and maybe a little bit clearer and more interesting. It's a thought experiment. It's usually called the knowledge argument, but we're going to call it the Mary argument. So here's a thought experiment. So Mary is a brilliant scientist who has spent her life in a black and white room, reading black and white books and looking at the world through black and white monitors. So she has never seen a color in her life other than black and white. She's never seen a color other than black and white. However, Mary has carefully studied the physics and the neuroscience of color perception. She knows all the physical facts about colors and color perception. She knows exactly what wavelengths of light cause different cones in the retina to send different signals, and how the visual cortex processes those signals. She knows everything there is to know about the physics and neuroscience of color perception. And so that doesn't just mean that she knows everything we actually know. She knows all physical information about wavelengths of light, about surface properties of objects, and how different objects reflect different wavelengths of light, resulting in different signals being sent to the brain. She knows everything about the human eye and the cones in the retina and rods and the optic nerve and the optic chiasma where they cross over, and the human brain, visual cortex, the V1 up to V5 or whatever it is. She knows all that. And she knows all the physical information, including stuff that we don't know yet. So she knows all of the physical facts, even the ones our current scientists don't know. She knows all physical facts about color perception and wavelengths of light and everything like that. All right? So Mary knows everything there is to know about color, but she has never personally seen any color except black and white. So she knows all the physical facts, including the stuff we don't know yet. So she knows all of the physical information. Regardless of whether anyone alive actually knows it, she's not limited by what we happen to actually know. So she has all the physical facts about color perception, but has never seen a color except black and white. So, after learning all of this physical information, Mary steps out of her black and white room. For the first time in her life, she steps out of her black and white room and sees a stop sign. For the first time in Mary's life, Mary sees a red object. Here's the question. Does Mary learn anything new when she steps out of the room and sees that stop sign? Does Mary learn any new information when she steps outside and sees a red object for the first time? That's the question. It looks like the answer is going to be yes. Mary does learn something new when she steps out of the room. She didn't know what the color red looked like before she stepped out of the room, and now she does know. Mary learns what it's like to see a red object. She learned what red looks like to us, to a person seeing it. She did not know that before. She knows that now. That is information she did not have until she stepped out of the room and saw a red object herself. But if that's right, then physicalists have a problem. If physicalism is true, then the only kind of information is physical information. Everything that exists is physical. All properties of objects are physical properties. So the only information there could possibly be is physical information. If everything that exists is physical, then all information is information about physical stuff. But Mary already knew all of the physical information. Mary already knew all physical information there is to know about color and color perception. Yet, when she steps out of a room and sees a red object for the first time, she learns new information. But that means what she learns must be non-physical information. She already knew all of the physical information, but when she steps outside, she still learns new information. And that means not all information is physical. Not all information is physical information. Not all information is information about physical stuff. But if there is non-physical information, then physicalism is false. If there's information about non-physical stuff, then not all stuff is physical. And that's exactly what physicalism says. All stuff is physical. So if not all stuff is physical, if some things aren't physical, then physicalism is false. So laying this out a bit more carefully in premise-conclusion form, we get the following argument. 1. Mary knows all the physical information before she steps out of the room. 2. When Mary steps out of the room, she learns new information that she did not already know. Which means 3, there is some information that isn't physical information. And therefore, physicalism is false. Not everything is physical. Physicalism must be false. So that's the Mary argument. And if you want to object to the Mary argument, then you're going to have to explain which of these premises is false. And there are lots of routes that some people have tried to take. There are plenty of physicalists still out there, even after this paper was published. So one option is to say that Mary didn't learn all of the physical information and couldn't possibly have learned all of the physical information because some physical information is only learnable from first-person experience. Which is surprising because, like, the whole point of physics is to be objective and not focus on subjective first-person experience. So that's a very weird result. But that's an option, that's a route of response that some physicalists have taken. physics is inherently incomplete because it ignores first-person information. That's one route some people have taken. Another route is to just deny that Mary learns new information. What Mary learns is something like a skill or an ability. She learns how to see red. She learns to see red objects, but she doesn't learn new information per se. That's what some people have argued. Another response has been that Mary already knew about red. What she gains is a new way to think about red, a new concept to represent red with. And that concept is the sort of experiential sensation she has when seeing a red object. Those are all responses that some people have taken and some people still defend. They are ways out of the argument, but they do have some counterintuitive consequences, just like all the responses to the physicalist argument had some counterintuitive consequences. So there are ways out of this argument, or there are ways people have tried to get out of this argument. Maybe some of them are successful, maybe none of them are successful. But this is the Mary argument. And so this is all I want to talk about for dualism. So if you have any questions about the Mary argument or about dualism or about physicalism, the causal argument, or any of that stuff, please let me know either by email or come to office hours on Tuesday next week. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.